everybody, mountain friends. All right, as I promised, I've been promising that I'm going to make cornbread dressing, and that's what I'm doing. Cornbread dressing is a favorite. You can't have, for us around our household, you can't have Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner without cornbread dressing. And I don't have a recipe. This is not, I've never ever had a written recipe for this. I didn't even know there was such a thing. I learned to make cornbread dressing from my aunt. Now, my mom really never made dressing much. When we had Christmases or holidays growing up, all of our family, my mom had a lot of siblings, and they had a bunch of kids, and we all got together at our mama's house when we were growing up, and that's where we had our dinners. Everybody just came. So everybody brought something, or they cooked stuff after they got at mama's. So my aunt always made the dressing. So she's gone on to be with the Lord now, and I do contribute a lot of my cooking, I don't want to say techniques. I'll never cook like her, but I learned a lot from her by watching her. Her name was Patty, my Aunt Patty. And she made cornbread dressing, and I learned from her. Now, if you go back on my videos, I have uploaded videos of my cornbread dressing. So this is a whole skillet of cornbread dressing. And now you're gonna need, when you make this, you need a big bowl. You need the biggest bowl you got in the house. And I just chop it up. And so cornbread dressing for us, now cornbread dressing is always better if you can use chicken stock or turkey stock right when you like baste a turkey or cook a chicken. Today I'm using chicken stock. So you can, but when you do this, make sure you're using chicken stock instead of broth. The stock has more flavor, okay? So I'm using chicken stock, celery and onions, a can of cream of chicken soup. I'm gonna put 2 eggs in it. I'm just doing a little poultry seasoning and some sage and pepper. I'm not gonna add any salt because stock has a lot of salt. And I have about a half a stick of melted butter. Now, if you're using chicken broth that you cooked, like if you cooked a chicken or a turkey, it's going to have plenty of good fat in it. Fat is where the flavor's at. We know that. But sometimes when you're using stock or stuff out of the store, it don't have a lot of fat in it. And so I'm adding melted butter to this to add a bit of richness to it, because you want that in it. If you're going to have it, you want to do it good. Now, I'm also going to be baking this in my big old 12-inch cast iron skillet, okay? You can bake it in a pan if you want, or like a 9x13, but we like ours moist in the middle and kind of crunchy on the edges. And if you bake it in a cast iron, you get that. The cast iron bakes it good and hot. I bake this at about 400 degrees. A cast iron will get it good and crispy on the bottom. And so, now I just got this out of the oven, so I want to use my hands. I got it cooled off enough where it won't burn me. And you just want it, you don't have to chop it up really fine. You can leave some chunks if you want, like that right there. And I apologize if this is poor lighting. I couldn't find my light. So this I have to do for now. And I'm filming by myself, so it's just the way it is. So what I do, I just add everything in and just mix it all together. There's no right or wrong way to do it. This makes a lot. I mean, now I want to tell you guys also, how I make my cornbread is this is Martha White cornmeal mix is how I make my cornbread. And it's self-rising cornmeal mix. And I just always went by, I just do the recipe that's on the back. Okay, that's what that is. If you get Martha White cornmeal mix, not Jiffy mix, that's like cake. You don't want that. Martha White cornmeal mix. And if you follow the recipe on the back, it's for cornbread. That's basically how I make my cornbread. So I got my vegetables in, and now I'm gonna start adding the liquid. Yeah, my family would be mad if I got up and said, I'm not making cornbread dressing. They wouldn't like it too good because I think they'd rather have that than the turkey or the ham. So I just start stirring it. And now you want your dressing a little wet. You don't want it super dry. Now we call it dressing. Some people call it stuffing. Now, my husband is about the only one in our family that likes his turkey stuffed. So I actually take some of this and I put it in the turkey when I bake it. I bake some in a pan separate, and then I take some of this and I put it in the turkey. I think most people I've ever known, we call it dressing. If you call it stuffing, let me know. Some people call it stuffing, but so I'm gonna go ahead and add the rest of this box of chicken stock, which is gonna be plenty. So I'm stirring it, and it's wet. So now I'm adding my can of cream of chicken soup. Now, if you wanted, I just use cornbread. If you want to, you can use like a sleeve of crushed up saltine crackers. Any kind of light bread, like leftover light bread, or biscuits, dried. My mama would make dressing too. She would like save her bread up for a few days up before the holidays and just add all of her scrap bread to it. You can do that too. But I just use cornbread. I don't use any other kind of bread or crackers. See, as you see, it's kind of soppy. Now it's time to add the eggs. I'm gonna go ahead and add my melted butter. So, and I'm gonna put my eggs in this little dish. I'm gonna beat them a little bit before I add them in there. Get me a fork. You just slightly beat them. Now hold on, wait. I think I'll wait to add my eggs last, because I want to taste this before I add my eggs, because this is when I'm going to put my seasoning in. So this is always a rule with me. When I season anything, I do like I call it a round of seasoning first, and I taste it, and if it needs anything, then I add more. So some people like their dressing really sagey, and some people don't. So this is I'm just sprinkling enough on top of this to cover it. Now that's the sage, not the poultry seasoning. See, I just covered it a little bit, and you can smell it. And this is poultry seasoning. Now poultry seasoning has sage, but it also has thyme and rosemary. And I don't know what else for sure. I can't hardly read it. It may not tell. Yeah, thyme, sage, marjoram, and rosemary, yeah. And I am going to add some black pepper. I'm just going to sprinkle some on top. I'm not adding a lot of salt to this because, well, I just got my paper. Because I think I said in the beginning, anytime you're using stock or bouillon cubes or anything like that, it's got a lot of salt in it. So I just give it a stir. So I'm just going to taste it. See how sagey it is. Needs more. This is sage. One more round on top. Poultry seasoning, one more round on top. A little more black pepper. Now, as you're adding the seasoning, it turns darker. It's going to take on that dark, little bit of a darker color. Mm. I think it's good. So, 2 beaten eggs. If you like your dressings more sagey, by all means add as much as you want. Some people like it real sagey, and some people don't. I like it just right. I mean, I want to have dressing. I want it to taste good. I want it to have that familiar dressing flavor, but I don't want it overpowered either. And then the eggs go in last. And as you can see, it's wet, and it's kind of like, you ever worked with cement before? My dad used to pour steps and stuff around the house, and that's kind of what it looks like. So now I'm going to put it in my skillet. See, that was easy. Sometimes just the simplest way is the best. I mean, you don't have to worry about having a lot of fancy ingredients. I mean, that's all it is. I mean, for us, we just like it like that. Pour it in the skillet. See? Now that's going to make a big old, that's a lot of dressing. But that's the best way to eat it. So, see that? Like that. Now, what I do is I always go in and just take my hand, and I do sprinkle a little more sage on top. Because any kind of spices, the longer they sit, the stronger they get in a recipe of any kind. And even though you taste it once it's cooked and once it sits too, it's going to take on a little more flavor, like with chili or anything like that. Poultry season, just a little sprinkle on top, and some black pepper on top. Just lightly dust it. Now that's it. That's how I make cornbread dressing. That's it. I'm gonna put it in the oven. It's gonna bake at least an hour. You're gonna keep an eye on it. I bake on hot, so my oven's at 400 because I want my crust. I want it to have a good crust on the bottom, but I also want it still moist in the middle, and you don't want it over dry. So I'm gonna put it in the oven at 400 degrees for about an hour. Just keep a watch on it, and you'll watch around the edges when it starts to get a little brown. And just get it as brown as you like, whatever you prefer. I mean, I want it good and brown, but I still want that moist in the middle. So I'll just keep an eye on it for usually about an hour, maybe an hour and a half at the most, but just keep an eye on it. Like I said, I don't measure, I don't do recipes, I just cook, and whatever suits me. When I think something's done, I just get it out. So, but there you go. I'm gonna put it in the oven, and when it comes out, I'll show y'all what it looks like. And here's a piece, and Daddy's going to tear into it. He likes it with some cranberry sauce.
I do. Closest thing to heaven.
It's hot, so don't
It is hot.
Burn the hair off your tongue. Yeah, dressing's done.
Oh my. That is delicious.
Yeah, so I make this, just use a cornbread recipe. Like I shared, it's on the I use Martha White cornmeal mix. The recipe on the back is how I make cornbread most of the time. That is how I do it. And you make a pan of that. But that's how it turns out. Good and crispy on the edges, still a little moist in the middle. Perfect. So, all right, guys, thank you for watching. So let me know if you make this dressing. Thank you for watching Mountain Cooking with Missy, where it's nothing fancy. It's just good eating.